Hello, everybody, and welcome to our call. Today, we are going to have a Pet Prana panel, and it's just our way for us all to get together and talk about what's going on and get a few experts together to give you their best tips and advice moving forward to keep your pets happy and healthy. So before we jump in, there's been a lot going on, so let's all just take a moment to take a deep breath, kind of breathing in through your nose and out to your mouth with sound, and just allow everything from the outside world and everything that's been going on to just fade away for a moment so you can really be present here in the discussion, in the conversation, where our goal is really to empower you with tips and information and also to answer your questions. Because we feel at this time Q&A is going to be really important so that we can hear what's on your mind and give you the best tips that we can from each of our professional standpoints. So we're so grateful that you are spending time to be with us here today on the call. Please know that this call is being recorded, so you'll be able to access the replay once the call's finished, and I'll be sending that out via email and posting it on Facebook. And that way, if you want to go back and review any of the information, you're absolutely welcome to do so. So really do relax and be present in this conversation. And, let's talk about what's going on. It's worth mentioning that given the topic du jour, that today I just want to record for the audio. Today is March 20th, 2020. The reason that's so important is things have been changing on a daily basis. So I really want to make sure that we're here providing you the most up-to-date information, but knowing that things are fluid and things are changing day to day. And our goal is really to get together today and discuss pet guardianship in light of COVID-19, which is a bit unprecedented, but we're really here to talk about ways to keep kind of our pack healthy and happy. So let me start off kind of introducing who's here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Denise Monge, and I'll be hosting the discussion today. I'm a certified dog trainer, a pet intuitive, and a pet numerologist. I'm also the founder of Pet Prana, and I truly believe that everyday interactions with our pets has the power to transform us. My work combines traditional obedience training with energetic considerations of pet guardianship. So it's more of a mindful approach to living and connecting and relating to our pets, because I feel in that we're able to create those behavioral shifts for both pets but also their humans. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me, you can always access my website at petprana.com. And I want to welcome and thank the featured panelists for being here today. They're taking time out of their busy schedules, and they're here as a resource to help us and empower us and share with us. So I'm just so grateful to these ladies who, on a personal note, are some of my favorite people in the industry. I've worked with them for years on end, and I couldn't think of two better people to be on the panel with me here today. The first is Dr. Barbara Calvig, and Dr. Calvig is the co-owner of Calvig and Shorter Veterinary Associates in New York, which is a multi-doctor small animal practice in Midtown Manhattan. Dr. Calvig's been trusted by many loyal NYC clients over the years due to her caring nature and dedication to providing excellence in veterinary medicine, patient care, and high-quality customer service, and that I can attest to. Dr. Calvig maintains a strong commitment to her community and has served as a leader within NYC in various areas of animal-related disaster response and emergency preparedness, beginning on 9/11. Dr. Calvig has been featured on various media platforms and has received numerous awards and recognition for her dedicated service within the veterinary field. And if you'd like to learn more about her practice, and especially her community service, she was an amazing resource on 9/11, understanding that we had to create a plan in place for pets, and has done amazing things for New York City in terms of emergency preparedness and caring for our pets ever since. Definitely go to the website, calvigandshorter.com, and you can read all about it. And then we also have Uduani Olguin, who is one of my colleagues and someone very near and dear to my heart. And Uduani is the founder of Uduani Olguin Dog Training. And she's worked extensively with clients throughout New York City, helping build relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. Uduani's training is based on force-free techniques, taking into account all aspects of each individual dog situation, including breed, background, temperament, and very importantly, household environment. Uduani works closely with several rescue groups, rehabilitating dogs with behavioral issues to help them find forever homes. And Uduani is actually the trainer. When I left New York, I trusted her with all my furry clients and their human counterparts. So if that doesn't give her a glowing review and a testament of how highly I think of her, nothing will. And so for all of you out in New York, she's going to be a great training resource for you guys because, she's very quickly adapted to the situation and is offering online training sessions. So if you are interested in her services and learning more about her, check her out at uduaniolguin.com. And again, all these websites are in the emails that you received with the access information. So with that long-winded introduction, I just wanted to welcome you ladies. Welcome. So lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
So let's get started really quickly. I just wanted to touch base before we go into Q&A. I wanted to touch base with, Dr. Calvig, with Uduani, and also just a side note, Gary, who was representing the dog walkers, things are changing so quickly, he was unable to join us last minute, but I've gotten his perspective, regarding NYC and dog walking, and I've also gotten the dog walkers' perspective in Los Angeles and doggy daycare perspective, so I'll be kind of speaking on their behalf. But Dr. Calvig, I just wanted to start with you. There's a lot of misinformation out there about COVID-19, and I would love to just ask your perspective and just get, kind of a final word on whether or not COVID-19 can be spread by pets. We're hearing a lot of story of people, surrendering their pets to shelters because they're afraid that they're transmitters. Can you shed some light on that? Ooh, Dr. Calvig, you might be on mute. You might have to just unmute yourself. Ooh, we still can't hear you. All right, so Dr. Calvig is going to call back in. She had a little technical difficulty. So before we go to her, let's start with you, Uduani. My question is, we met in New York City. So I was doing dog training in New York City. We both went through the same formal, positive reinforcement dog training programs. And, now that I'm in Los Angeles, there's definitely unique challenges in social distancing and caring for our pets within each city. What's been the most popular question that you've been receiving from your New York City clients, and what kind of advice or tips are you giving them?
Yeah, sure. So that's very difficult. The social distancing in New York City, as I'm sure most of you can imagine, is quite difficult. Even if you're trying to keep that 6-foot distance from other people on the sidewalk, sometimes it's nearly impossible. So one thing that we've been working a lot on is, and a lot of my clients have asked this, is it still okay for my dog to greet other dogs on the walks? And so I've definitely given the green light on that because it's important for the dogs to still be able to interact with each other and have some level of sanity and all of this uncertainty. I'm sure you'll brush more on this, but they pick up on our energy so much that we have to still provide them with some sense of normal in all of this uncertain situation. So I've been telling everyone, try to distance yourself from the other human, of course, but do allow for your dog to greet other dogs as long as you're asking ahead of time. So that's been, in my training practice, we've always had that as a general rule, to always ask before. You never know how the other human or the other dogs might feel about on-leash greetings. So we want to make sure everyone's on board before we're just bringing our dogs over to say hi. But I am also, a big question I've been getting too is, do I allow my dog to be pet by another human? And then is it transmittable to me if I then touch my dog? And on that front, I have had some mixed information that I was actually very interested to see what Dr. Talvik would have to say about that. So I've been erring on the side of caution and just telling everyone to please only allow their dogs to come into contact with other dogs, and to, for now, until we have more concrete information, refrain from any dog to human contact if it's someone that you're not familiar with.
I love that advice. I've actually been getting a lot of similar comments. And so, the cool thing about the leash also, by the way, is, New York City, we used a lot of those 4 feet leash. That's like a visual representation of how far you need to be, right? So that's kind of cool that as we're out on walks, we really know what distance we are from the other humans. But in all of this, it's still going to be important not only for the dogs to have this sense of normalcy and being able to, sniff other dogs and have that interaction, but it's important for the socialization. I have a client who's picking up their rescue puppy today, and they're like, how am I going to socialize my dog with other puppies? There's no group classes out there. So I agree, within a safe distance from the humans, dog to dog, I think is still important from a developmental standpoint. And then, it's interesting because energetically, usually I'm like, we are the ones who are dictating the energy. We're the ones who are kind of like setting the stage. We need to assist our animals in the energetics. But honestly, I feel like given such craziness around humans, the animals are actually taking the lead on our behalf. And in those small interactions, they're showing us that you can have a joyful moment amidst all this crisis. And what I find happening a lot in LA is a lot of people smiling at each other from a distance. The animals definitely are bringing a lot of levity and joy, even if we're walking down the street to go get some supplies and we see a dog walk by. It brings such warmth to our hearts, whether we're petting them or not. And I do agree with you. I don't pet dogs that come to me because I'm also nervous that the pet parent might be, uncomfortable with it. So I'm trying to stay, as respectful of all parties. And to your point, we don't know all the information yet, so better be safe than sorry. One thing that you mentioned that is really important as well is this notion of kind of some normalcy for our pets and having some of those touchstones. And the biggest thing that I'm kind of seeing or foreseeing happening is, as our animal companions are loving that we're home all day and spending, all this time with them, when things do normalize and we're able to go back to, less of a sedimentary lifestyle where we're grounded at home, our animal companions are going to have a lot of separation anxiety. So one thing I've been advising my clients in LA is to still, if your dog is used to a confinement area or being in a crate for a certain amount of the day, continue with that routine, not only for normalcy, but so that when it's back to business as usual, we won't be kind of hit with this wave of separation anxiety in pets. What are your thoughts on that? What are your perspectives?
Yeah, you read my mind. I can tell you we come from the same school of dog training, because I was thinking the same thing today. I thought about that. It's with the puppies, of course, the ones that are still in the potty training process, it's a much easier way to continue with crating because it's already embedded in their daily routine. But with those that are free roamers, I've been recommending setting up gates or having some form of a barrier in the house. And so they're working maybe in their home office if they have one, or their bedroom, while their dog is spending the majority of their day where they typically would. Generally, most of our free roamers are in the living room lounging on the sofa or somewhere cool. So just keeping them in their general routines as much as possible. Obviously, they're well aware that their parent is home in the other room, but just
Yeah.
that distancing, even if it's that visual distance, and
Yeah.
keeping them on their sleeping schedules as well, not overstimulating them to where they're no longer napping at the normal times, and obviously sticking to the walking schedule. All of those things will help them transition more easily when everything is back to the office hours and all of that. But yes, that's a great point. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Beautiful. So, Dr. Calvig, it sounds like we got you back. Can you say hello?
Yes,
to
I'm so sorry.
Yay, beautiful. No, that's okay. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit and just kind of get back to that initial kind of question on everyone's mind, with a lot of misinformation out there about COVID-19, and we see articles about people surrendering their pets to shelters because they're fearful that they might catch it from their pets. Can you share your perspective on whether COVID-19 can be spread by pets, or what's the latest what's your latest take on that?
Well, as we all know, we are finding out more and more every day, and until this plays out for a longer period of time, we really won't know, the absolute answer. At this point in time, this is being compared to other coronaviruses where there was a middle animal host before there was transmission to people. In this particular case, that is not the dog, that is not the cat. Now, we do know that 2 dogs have tested positive, the one of which was a geriatric Pomeranian in Wuhan, and that particular dog only tested very, very weak positive, didn't really have an antibody response, and although the dog did die, there was no necropsy. So there was really no proof there that dog died of that disease, and whether or not it was infected or infectious, which are 2 very different things. So the good thing is that this virus is very responsive to hand washing. There have been reports that are coming out that originally it was surfaces and droplets. And droplets we talked about with the dog leashes and how far away they should be. Droplets can really be up to 3 to 6 feet with respiratory transmission, but there is some feeling that there will be we'll be knowing that there will be aerosol. The virus will last in the air. And so that right now is being looked at and could be in the air for up to 3 hours. So I think that, in the actual question of can we catch this from our pets as a host transmitter, the answer at this point would be no. Where there is some concern is whether or not on soft surfaces, if we are socializing, and it really all comes back to respiratory hygiene, washing our hands, and social distancing at this time. Because if we were to pet our pets and then go out and another person pets the pet, I don't think anyone really knows. At this point, it doesn't seem like high risk at all, but we don't know. And I think that it's just important for everyone to wash their hands, as they always should, after interacting with their pets. And I think the comment on not petting other pets is probably a good idea, because the last thing that we want to do is create public panic where more people are turning in their animals. I mean, that's just, not the way we want to go.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that perspective. That's really helpful. And also let me ask you this, because with most of us either trying to observe social distancing, or some of us even being asked to, shelter in place and not leave unless there's, an emergency, you're also in the midst of it all, balancing, your veterinary office and being of service to your clients while keeping your staff safe and healthy. So, during this call, we want to empower pet parents with, tools on dealing with common pet problems at home to the extent that is safe, right? So, especially things that I see come up during stressful situations with animals are going to be things like an upset stomach or loose stool or even vomiting. Are there any general tips that you have? Of course, we don't want to diagnose, or, if anybody's worried, contact your vet in a safe way, over the phone or however they're connecting with their client base. But are there any general guidelines or tips helping pet parents address some of these conditions at home so that they're not kind of overburdening the veterinary offices and facilities? Like, is there anything they should have on hand, like canned pumpkin, or what are some tips to help people deal with some minor things at home?
Absolutely. And I think first of all, when we talk about this subject, although this is a different type of disaster than we've dealt with in the past because of the pandemic aspect, we really should all have our own go bag, and we should have a go bag for our pet. And what that means is that if we have to be separated from our pets and someone else needs to go in and take care of them, or if we need to leave quickly with our pets, that we have certain supplies. And some of those supplies are the same basic first aid inclusions that we would have just on our shelves. So right now, at least in New York, veterinary hospitals have been considered to be essential businesses. So up until now, and this could change day by day and week by week on the reality of what's going on with the human spread, because if that continues, hours and social distancing and all of these things are going to have to become more stringent. But right now, most of the veterinary hospitals are actually at least seeing people from the front of the office, bringing the pet in, trying to really keep operations going so that when people get new puppies and when people have a sick pet, there is really somewhere for them to go. If you can limit the amount of times that you go in, because you are able to call your veterinarian or get advice, and you do have certain things at home, because we don't know when and if we don't know when and if communities may shut down further. And we really will have to be homebound for a period of time. That is a potential. So things to have at home are always a good idea, similar to what we have ourselves that we use, as well as in our go bags for ourselves and our pets. Plenty of water. We would recommend at least about a pint per day to have a water supply for pets. That's not an issue at home because our water supplies are not affected in this particular incident. But if we did have to have a go bag to have at least a 2-week supply, we would have certain first aid materials, easy, soft bandage material, which you can get over the counter, some kind of a bandaging tape. Different types of cleansers that can be safely diluted for people and for pets would be over-the-counter, easy to get, is a betadine or a chlorhexidine solution, and we can talk about that a little bit more. Benadryl is always a very good thing, either diphenhydramine, which is the generic form, or actual branded Benadryl, because in case there is any type of an allergic reaction and you can't get into your veterinary hospital quickly, you can be guided over the phone on a dose to give for your pet, and that's always a good thing to have in your go bag or your first aid pet kit. Vomiting, you mentioned canned pumpkin. That's a good thing to have on hand for certain types of gastrointestinal issues, as would bland foods that you can easily make. So if you were stocking up right now for your own supplies, maybe having things like brown rice or oatmeal, things that are very bland and easy to store in case your pet had any kind of a gastrointestinal disturbance. Getting your pet now, while the vet hospitals are able to be open, getting them a probiotic, having some canned intestinal diets. Some of the prescription diets are very good to have on hand at home. And for vomiting, simple things like omeprazole, which is Prilosec, or Pepcid AC, things that you might already have in your stock can be dosed for your pet. And so those would be things that would be, really, really important to have that are easy to store. If you're making a go bag, what you want to do is make sure that you have a collapsible water bowl, plenty of leash and collars that are sturdy, some kind of a, small area in the carrier for a collapsible litter pan if you have a cat. And of course, making sure that your pets now are up to date on their microchip and their rabies vaccines is very, very important. And there's all kinds of things you can use to make a go bag. But just really, really simple over-the-counter medications that we use for ourselves can easily be something you can have on hand for yourself and your pet.
I love that. And for anyone catching the replay or on this, there's a link either under or to the side of the slides that has a link to a emergency preparedness guidebook that Dr. Calvig and I put together way back in, I think it was 2012, Dr. Calvig. But it contains all the worksheets on what to plan for, to include in your go bag. So don't feel like, all these items that Dr. Calvig listed, you have to go back and take notes. It's all in this PDF, as well as worksheets on figuring out where are the closest pet-friendly hospitals, pet-friendly hotels. So there's kind of a complete guide from a behavioral standpoint, how to make sure your pet is happy if you have to change your routine, as well as what to include in the go bag and considerations from a medical standpoint. Dr. Calvig, one question I had for you is are there ways or signs that our pet's dehydrated? I know for me, if there's a dog that's vomiting, I always get a little nervous about dehydration, and I'm never quite sure. I've read online that if you pinch their skin and it goes down, they're fine. But can you tell us, are there some symptoms of dehydration we should look for?
Sure, and I think that when you get into the pinching of the skin for a layperson, that's going to be when they're quite dehydrated. And so, short of that, getting used to what your dog's gums feel like. We often hear about a dog should have a wet nose, but dogs and cats really would have moist gums, nice moist pink gums. And looking at the gums in different lights and different times of day. Pushing on the gum and making sure when the color blanches out to white or light pink that the color comes right back. A nice moisture there. When the gums get very sticky, what we call as tacky, that's a very early stage of dehydration. And patients that do have diarrhea and vomiting can dehydrate. Where it becomes more of an issue is when you get into an older patient that might have compromised kidney function. So you add any kind of stress or gastrointestinal issues on top of that, and they're more prone. So everything we want to do right now in this highly stressful situation is be prepared and really have everything on board that we need for our pets according to their own medical issues, as we should for our own. And then things like calming treats, there's all kinds of things that are out today, just to make sure that, we catch it very early on, that we don't let it go too far.
And so if I am a pet parent and I find that my dog is feeling a bit dehydrated, maybe they vomited and they do have those kind of sticky gums, and I try to give them water and they throw up the water, they can't hold it down. Is there something I can do at home, like let them lick ice cubes, or is there anything I can do, or is that the point where you try to seek veterinary assistance?
You would seek veterinary assistance if the vomiting, if you have an active young 1 or 2 year old dog and they've eaten quickly or they're in from their walk and they vomit once and they want to gobble their food back up, that's different than a pet that's acting lethargic or quieter than usual. So with vomiting, it's always good to call. But if we, again, not knowing where this situation is going, if you were on your own, vomiting one time with an active, healthy pet, probably giving a dose of Pepcid AC. Your vet can tell you the dosage to do that, because I don't want to give recommendations in general, but it should be directed from your veterinarian. But if you did give that, that would be something that would be helpful, so you might have to go in. Right now, it's such a complicated situation because although we are open, we're trying to be very, very mindful of crowding and social distancing and keeping people at home as much as possible while still being available to treat their pets. And so different types of first aid materials, I would also recommend now calling your own veterinarian to find out what they would recommend that you have on hand. They may have special foods or different things that they prefer or recommend for their own, medical advice and reasons. But just really making sure that if vomiting is persistent, then it's something that they really do need to go in for. If it was multiple episodes of vomiting, you don't want to give them anything really. You want to get them in.
Got it. Thank you. That's perfect. All right, guys. So if you're on the phone, *2 will raise your hand. We definitely want to start some Q&A in here. Or if you've joined via web, you can just enter your question in the Q&A box and we'll get to it. So while you guys get started with raising your hand, and Udawani, I'm going to ask you to press *2, please, just as a test to make sure that it's working, because technology has been a little wonky lately. Perfect. All right, the function's working. So if you're on the phone and you want to ask your question, *2 will raise your hand. Again, the questions that we're looking for are kind of more general, like Dr. Calva can't diagnose anything on the phone, but we can definitely provide some guidance and overarching emergency preparedness tips and just kind of general guidelines. And of course, Yudwani and I are down for anything, so feel free to ask. One thing that I wanted to do, since Gary was unable to join, I did want to bring in the dog walker's perspective, right, and also the doggy daycare facility. One thing is, if you are in a situation where you still have your dog walker coming, maybe you can't leave the apartment, maybe you're at an age where you're at risk and your dog walker is still offering those services, one thing that might be really wise for both parties involved is asking them to bring their own leash so that you guys aren't sharing the same leash, and then just making sure that you wash, your hands or offer them a little hand sanitizer before they touch the edge of it. That's just one way to not kind of share germs and be wise about that. From what I understand, dog walkers are still an option. They can still be used because their service does support the nurses, the doctors, people who have to care for the elderly. So at least in California, dog walkers do still tend to be an approved service or business. Again, that might change. In LA, I spoke to a local doggy daycare, and for the same reasons why dog walking is still an approved business, the doggy daycare is as well. So there are doggy daycares that currently are still open. They're there to support, people who work in the health industry or are driving food or working at supermarkets so that their pets can be cared for. A lot of the doggy daycares right now are offering drop-off services. So, like at curbside. So you call, somebody comes out, they leash your dog, they take them. Again, same energetic hygiene with the leash. They bring out their own leash, they hook it, and, they bring it back and they unhook it. That way the leash doesn't transfer any germs. But we'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys have any particular questions, we'd love to hear your experience as well, whether you work in the pet industry or you're working with, healing and keeping, the human sane. *2 will raise your hand or enter your question in the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to field it or share it with the group. This is such a tremendous opportunity for us to all come together and just, share what's been working, get some questions answered, because there's a lot of misinformation swirling out there. So, Yudwani, while we're waiting to have folks raise their hand, what are some tips and tricks that you might have that you've shared with your clients to help pets who are home all day, maybe spending less time outdoors, less time at a doggy daycare? What are ways to get them mental stimulation indoors? What are some of your favorite games?
Yeah, of course. So I love, and actually I recommend you do this even when this is all said and done, because it's a life-saving skill. I love to play hide and seek with dogs. It's a great way to reinforce recall, and it's highly stimulating. Even if you're in a shoebox apartment like most of us are here in New York City, you can get really creative with it. You can hide in your bathtub. You can hide in a closet. The possibilities are endless, and I've actually videotaped dogs that I've played this with just to see what's going on while I'm in my hiding spot, and it's wonderful. You see the smiles on their face. They're really looking for you. They're into it. They're sniffing around, and then you, of course, see their just overall satisfaction once they have found you, and you want to obviously treat them to keep them engaged. And what this does is it helps reinforce impulse control, because of course you have to first have them either in a sit or a down stay. You're working on out of view stays, which are very advanced, and then you're also working on, as I said, the life-saving cue, which is come. Being in cities, we all know how scary it feels if your dog ever came off the leash and didn't know to come back to you. So again, even once coronavirus is no longer in our headlines, I recommend playing hide and seek daily with your dog at least 10 minutes a day. But take advantage of this time. Maybe your games are longer. Maybe you're teaching it for the first time, but it's a great way to reinforce a solid recall. Another really fun game that I find can be helpful if you're working from home and can't necessarily dedicate all that time to your dog during the day is, especially if you're on a conference call and you're really worried about your dog maybe interrupting, is setting up a scavenger hunt. And so you would set up various toys that are food delivering, or maybe your dog's favorite chew toy that you give limited access to. That's also another side note, is rotating toys right now can be very helpful, just to kind of bring in the novelty of something new that they haven't seen in several days and keep them entertained that way. So you set up the scavenger hunt, maybe have your dog again in a solid down stay as you're setting everything up in another room. If your dog's stay isn't great, have them temporarily tethered or gated off while you're setting everything up. And again, you don't have to have everything hidden in a really tight spot. We kind of want to make it easy for them, but stimulating enough that they have several things to search for, and once they find it, it's not just a quick treat they're eating. It's like a little puzzle that they're having to figure out. So indoor scavenger hunts. Another thing that during my video sessions this week we've been doing, and it's really fun, is agility training. So you don't even have to have the props. I know right now everything's out of stock on Amazon, so you can get creative. If you have a shorter dog, you can set up various rolls of paper towels or toilet paper, which I'm sure everybody's fully stocked on, and you teach them to weave through those. Or if your dog's maybe a little taller, you set up a few chairs in a line and teach them to weave through the chairs. You could even teach your dog to put just their front paws up on a surface. You can just get so creative with the different things that you can teach your dog while you're indoors for so many hours. Maybe brush up on some training that you haven't done in a while. Really, the possibilities are endless if you really think about it. But the idea is spending time with your dog and making it engaging and productive for both of you.
I love that. I call the agility with things around the house puppy parkour, where it's like they're weaving through, jumping over, going under. And those are the kind of things, I love your suggestions, and we're definitely sisters from different misters. I'm so glad that Alfie has you in his life, one of my New York City guys. Because those are going to engage them physically, burn off some energy, but also mentally. So even if you're only able to dedicate 10 minutes, that might be the equivalent of them running around the block 5 times. So that mental engagement is actually going to be the best way to kind of hit that efficiency of, I don't have a ton of time and I need to tucker them out a little bit. I love your idea of hiding the treats around the house, or the toys that have treats around the house. For puppies who might not be, their sniffer isn't quite there yet, I love to do a variation, which is treasure blanket, which you get an old blanket and you just put little treats in the folds and then just let them kind of dig around at that. That also gets their little digging instincts out as well. And then I love, not that we're getting as many deliveries as we used to, but maybe some of us have some boxes around. I love what I call Pandora's box, where you put, boxes within boxes with different treats and toys within each. So as they dig through and get through the boxes, they have a surprise. What else do I do? Oh, and then I have the good old New York City 80s subway game, which is you get 3 Solo Flex cups. You put a treat under one. You kind of rotate it from side to side, and they have to guess. They have to paw on which cup they think has the treat. And when they do, you lift up the cup, and if the treat's there, they get it. If not, they get to try again. So tons of fun ways to spend time with our pets. Thank you for that. And also, guys, there's another link either above or to the side of the slide that has an article about some different, games you can play with your pets and ideas to keep your pets stimulated in, an apartment setting. So we have a question from Sharon, and this is a great question. And she's asking, because we tend to hold, handle, and cuddle our dogs a lot, if the guardian happens to contract COVID-19, is it safe for someone else to care for the dog? So Dr. Kalvik, I know you touched upon that, saying that we don't quite know. I imagine that something we could preemptively do until we know more is using, wipes, little in-between bath grooming wipes that they have that are pet friendly. But Dr. Kalvik, would you like to weigh in and share any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the best recommendation that is coming out today is if anyone is positive that they're isolating, and they're isolating from pets and other people. So whoever would be the caretaker for that dog would be somebody who would practice really good respiratory hygiene, maybe wearing a mask if they had one available, definitely washing of hands or wearing gloves when touching the dog, and keeping the dog away from the owner. So the pet really is isolated during the period of time. What is also coming out where they felt that it was a 14-day incubation period, they're starting to find out that it's probably more between 4 and 7 days, which makes all of our separation much better. And I'm not going to comment on that definitively right now, but that is something that is being talked about, that it may not be as long as 2 weeks. But right now we're following all the human medical recommendations, and people should really keep up to date on the website with the CDC. They have a public-facing section on it. The World Health Organization website also has a daily situation report, and then, of course, the local health department. So every day with how this is changing, the number of cases are increasing, and data is being collected by this, then, the information and the guidance will change. But definitely, if someone were positive, they should be isolated away from their pet. I will say, getting back to the last discussion, which were just awesome ways to keep your pet stimulated, every single one of them, being careful on what treats we give. If your pet is one that has a very sensitive stomach, making sure that, we tend to buy a lot of chips and dips and all kinds of things when we're home, and the same thing for our pets. There's so many different fabulous looking treats to buy on the shelves or to order today. But when we are going to be homebound, we want to make really sure that the dog does not, or the cat does not, get a gastrointestinal upset, which would potentially cause dehydration, as we talked about before. So if there's a type of treat that your pet consistently likes, to stick to that during this time. Don't worry about getting a lot of different brands and boxes and bags of fun new things. Just really, really be safe. So I hope that was helpful in answering that question, but just using the same isolation. If we are positive, we shouldn't be with our pets, just like we shouldn't be with our family or friends right now. Really, really self-isolating so that we can get through this together.
Beautiful. And that's such great advice. I think a lot of us talk about, not the freshman 15 so much, but the COVID-19. We're all a little bit more sedentary. Maybe we went to the store and we got some comfort foods. So with our pets, keeping in mind that we don't want to overfeed or overtreat. And one thing that I'm sure Yudwani would agree with is if you do feed your pet kibble, use their meals, whatever their daily allotment for meals is, use some of those kibbles for the treats and the training and the exercise versus adding too many more calories in there. For our animal companions, they're really happy to be engaging with us. And even a piece of kibble that's, a little hand-fed feels a little bit more like a treat and something special anyway, but it's really about the experience together. So great advice and reminders to not kind of start with something brand new or brand new food or, whatever. Although on the flip side, there might be people who, they're having trouble finding their brand of food. And, one thing, Dr. Kalvik, that you always were so great at reminding me about is if you do find yourself in a situation where you do need to transition from a different brand of food, if you can stick with the same protein, that seems to help. But also trying to do it when you still have some of the old food left so that you can do a gradual transition versus, a sudden shift. That's going to be helpful, too, for those little tummies.
And
let's see,
to
great
speak on that,
question.
to speak on that just a minute, people oftentimes will think that they have to do 50-50 because they know they have to transition, but yet in their minds it's a 50-50, and it really needs to be slower than that. So every food has a different amount to feed that's recommended based on the caloric content. Let's just say, as an example, you were switching to one that you were giving a cup a day to one that you were giving 2 cups a day. You don't have to stress about the exact 25-50% math. Every day, just take a little bit of the old away and add a little bit of the new. Very, very slowly, just by common sense. It doesn't have to be a measuring cup. Just very slow change, and try to do it over about 7 days, and you can usually get through it just fine, unless the new food is something that would really not sit well anyway.
I love that. That's great advice. So you guys type into the Q&A box, maybe what you've been doing for fun with your animal companions, how you've been keeping busy, whether in New York City or in Los Angeles, where we're fortunate to have a little bit more room. We'd love to hear from you guys, or maybe if you're a dog walker or you've traditionally done dog sitting, we'd love to hear how you've kind of adapted to these situations. Again, if you're on the phone line, *2 would raise your hand, and we'd love to hear from you, or just type into the Q&A box. One thing that I do want to say is it can be, I think we all can relate to this. We all probably have identified this and talked about this with a loved one. It can be kind of scary when we keep listening to the news, or we think about what could happen. Our animal companions are providing such a service for us energetically, just holding that vibration of levity and lightness and joy and being in the moment, which is something that as pet parents, gosh, it's the most beautiful relationship and the most beautiful energy and the best therapy that we could ask for. So one thing that I also encourage doing when we're indoors with our animal companions is breathing practices. So, breathing is something when we're stressed, we kind of hold our breath and we tense up, and our animal companions pick up on that. So if you have any breathing practices you do at home, this is a great time to kind of keep that and create a new routine for yourself with touchstones where, perhaps it's when you wake up in the morning, instead of running to see what's on with the news, take 10 minutes to, breathe in deeply through your nose, hold it for 4 seconds, out through your mouth with sound. If you do yoga, doing some yoga poses is going to be really helpful, or even simply doing meditations or guided meditations. Those are all activities that, even though we think of as being more beneficial to the humans, our animal companions really pick up on and benefit as well. And a lot of them end up curling up and joining us, while we're in the middle of it. So there are resources, and I'll be sending an email out to my newsletter, like the app Simple Habit. They invited me to do meditations for pets. And so I've created some meditations on there for people and their animal companions to do together. But what's really cool is they're opening their entire library of meditations, whether it's my series or all the other expert series. And it's all going to be free. So if you want to go on, and if you're feeling anxious, they have 5 minutes, guided meditations or visualizations or kind of little mini coaching sessions. So tap into these beautiful online resources that we have available to us. In one way, we are kind of self-isolating and, practicing social distancing. But on the other hand, we have all these beautiful communities where we can connect, we can share our experiences, we can borrow these online resources, and we have endless libraries at our disposal. So let's all get together and also share those on Facebook groups, on my page, on Uduani's page, on Calvig Shorter's, Facebook page. Let's share things that are working for us so other pet parents can benefit as well. Let's see.
I just wanted to add something real quick. That one of the best lessons we can all learn from dogs is just how they're so great at being in the moment and being present. And in times like these, it helps a lot to just focus on what we have and what's within our control. I think a lot of the situation is causing people a lot of anxiety because of all the uncertainty around it. But if we can be more like our dogs and focus on what's here and now, and as you say, even just controlling our breath can bring a lot of calm to the house and bring harmony to everyone. But one practice that I do, just as a quick tip, is gratitudes every morning. Just write down. It might seem like a big chore, but it really changes your mindset a lot. If you could just start with maybe 3 things and then go up to 5 and keep going if you can think of them. But just all the things you're grateful for can really help change your day.
And I would like to just add too, Denise and Urani, when we are, talking about all of these things between meditation and how to stay calm in the best of times with just the day-to-day anxiety in life, one of the things that they talk about always is nature. So we get very focused on our inability right now to socialize. And in our normal lives, one of the best things we can do is to get away and be in nature. And even if that's getting up a little bit earlier in the morning in the city and getting down to the river or to a park before anyone else is there, or taking a long walk while the streets are empty, even if we have to eventually stay in all the time, we have that opportunity now to be, we don't have to focus so much about socializing as just being with our dog, and being with our dog in an area where it's beautiful, and being calm ourselves with our own pet, or spending that time with our cat those are the best times anyway. We don't always need a lot of other people around, and remembering that instead of always being so worried right now, I think is so beautiful. I was out on a walk last evening, and the birds were just chirping all over, and it was the daffodils coming up through the wet, hard ground, and it was absolutely beautiful and such a good reminder that spring is here. And, nature's out there, and we just have to get to it. This is something that still surrounds us.
This is why I love you ladies. It's the practical advice grounded in the optimism and the kind of life lessons and what we can do and how we can make life beautiful. So thank you. Let's see, Joan writes in and she says, I love your comments about breathing. I'm currently doing online yoga classes, and my dog Olivia is my constant companion. Her energy helps ground me. Thank you for this call. Very helpful. Joan, I love that. If you can just kind of type in and let us know what your website is or how anybody interested in doing online yoga classes might be able to participate. We love to support and be part of heart-centric pet parents and their projects. So definitely type that in. It doesn't look like we have any other hands up. I'm just double checking. Again, *2 will raise your hand. And I don't see you writing in, Joan, so I'm just going to give you a shout out to if you want to post it on the on my Pet Prana page or on Denise Trainer. Folks can go there and check it out. This is Joan. I don't want to put out your last name without you giving me permission. So if you want to post something on my page, that would be fantastic, and then people can find it there. So I think this is really a beautiful place for us to kind of wrap up the call and the panel discussion. Again, I just want to thank Dr. Calvig and Urani for all their time and expertise and being so generous with both, because in these times it does help to have a community and to be able to bounce questions off an expert. And I'm so grateful to be able to collaborate with you two, even if you're across the country. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'm just seeing, did Joan write in? No, okay. So you guys, thank you so much for being with us. I know that this is, kind of, it can be a little bit of a hectic time, but it's also an opportunity, as we discussed, to kind of ground in some more mindful practices for us and our animal companions and kind of move forward with those as part of our new routine and our new normal, bringing in some of the positives that we pick up throughout, this whole social distancing and potentially self-quarantining. So we hope that you found this helpful and informative, but also empowering. And please know that we're all connected. We're all here for you. If you have questions, if you're just looking to be part of a community, we're all on social media. And, you know, Yudwani and I are both offering online classes. So if you feel drawn to connect with either of us, you know, we're still available to provide, you know, dog training in just a simply new and innovative way. So I'm just so grateful that everybody spent the time to be here with us and brought your questions and your energy and just an intention to get through this as a beautiful, like-hearted community and pack. So sending you all so much love, and until next time, happy training.